Most people don't realize that the number one thing keeping them from losing weight is not how much they eat, but how their hormones are working behind the scenes. And the main hormone that determines whether your body stores fat or burns fat is insulin. Insulin is like a switch. When it's on, your body is locked in fat storage mode. You could be exercising every single day, eating low-calorie meals, even cutting out your favorite foods. But if insulin is running high in your system, your body will stubbornly hold on to fat. It's almost like your body is programmed to resist your efforts. This is why so many people say, "I'm doing everything right, but nothing is happening." The truth is, if insulin is elevated, fat loss is practically shut down. Think about it like this. Imagine you've got a huge savings account filled with energy, your fat stores. That's supposed to be the backup fuel your body taps into when it needs energy, but insulin is like a lock on that account. If it's too high, the lock is sealed tight, and your body can't access its own stored fat. Instead, it keeps demanding more quick energy from the outside: sugar, snacks, refined carbs, because it's blocked from using what's already there. That's why cravings feel so powerful when insulin is out of balance. The body isn't broken, it's simply being told by insulin to store, not to burn. And here's the surprising part: you don't need massive amounts of insulin for this to happen. Even small spikes, repeated throughout the day, keep the body in storage mode. That's why people who eat healthy snacks every few hours still struggle. They're unknowingly keeping insulin turned on all day long. The key, then, is not just about the calories you put in, but how you influence insulin. Once you understand that insulin is the gatekeeper of fat loss, you begin to see why controlling this hormone is the real solution, not depriving yourself or exercising harder. Here's what almost everyone gets wrong. They assume that if they just eat smaller portions or switch to healthy snacks, they're doing their body a favor. But the truth is, every single time you eat, you trigger insulin. It doesn't matter if it's a handful of nuts, a piece of fruit, or even something labeled as sugar-free. The very act of eating signals your body to release insulin. Now, when you repeat this cycle over and over, 6, 7, even 8 times a day, you're keeping insulin elevated around the clock. That means your body never gets a chance to actually tap into stored fat. This is why the idea of grazing or eating small meals throughout the day has done more harm than good. People were told that eating frequently boosts metabolism or stabilizes energy, but in reality, it's the exact opposite. Constant eating forces your pancreas to pump out more insulin, and instead of stabilizing energy, it traps your body in fat storage mode. So, even if the foods seem clean, you're still signaling insulin to rise, and fat burning stays completely switched off. Now picture this: your body is like a machine with 2 fuel tanks. One filled with sugar and quick energy, the other filled with stored fat. If you're constantly eating, your body will keep burning from the sugar tank because insulin won't allow it to touch the fat tank. That's why people feel drained just a few hours after a meal and crave another snack. They're stuck in sugar dependency. It's not that their metabolism is slow. It's that insulin is constantly blocking them from using their own reserves. The moment you stop eating so frequently, insulin finally drops, and your body can shift gears, reaching into that fat storage that it was locked out of before. And here's where the breakthrough really happens: when insulin finally comes down. Your body completely changes the way it operates. Instead of being trapped in storage mode, it begins to unlock the fat reserves that have been sitting there for years. Suddenly, you're not just burning the calories from your last meal, you're burning the calories from your own body fat. That's the key most people miss. Fat burning doesn't even begin until insulin is lowered. The moment that switch flips, people often describe it as if their body is finally working with them instead of against them. Energy levels start to feel more stable, mental clarity improves, and that heavy, sluggish feeling begins to lift. Why? Because fat is a far more efficient, long-lasting fuel than sugar. When insulin is high, you're chained to sugar for quick bursts of energy, which always come with crashes and cravings. But when insulin is low, you're tapping into fat, and that fuel source is steady, clean, and abundant. Think of insulin like a traffic light. As long as it stays on red, fat burning is stopped dead in its tracks. You can try as hard as you want, exercise harder, cut calories lower, but nothing moves because the light is red. The second insulin drops, that light turns green. Your metabolism starts flowing in the right direction, fat becomes available, and the process of real weight loss begins. This is why so many people are shocked when, after simply lowering insulin, they start seeing results without changing a dozen other things. It's not magic, it's physiology. Once the gatekeeper steps aside, your body does exactly what it was designed to do: burn fat for fuel. Now, the most powerful way to bring insulin down isn't about buying expensive supplements or following complicated programs. It's simply giving your body more time between meals. This is what we call intermittent fasting, but really, it's just going back to the way humans were designed to eat. Your body doesn't need food every few hours. In fact, it thrives when there are periods of rest from eating. When you extend the time between meals, insulin naturally drops, and that opens the door for fat burning to take place. Most people don't realize that the simple act of not eating is what triggers the body to heal and burn fat. Think about it. When you're not constantly putting food in, your pancreas isn't forced to release insulin again and again. Instead, insulin gradually falls, and as it does, your body finally shifts gears from storing to burning. This is why people who adopt intermittent fasting often say it feels almost effortless compared to dieting. They're not starving themselves, they're just allowing insulin to come down long enough for the body to switch into fat burning mode. Even something as basic as skipping snacks and pushing your first meal later in the day can make a massive difference. For example, instead of eating breakfast at 7 a.m., you might push it to 10 or 11. That small adjustment creates hours where your insulin stays low, giving your body time to access fat. And if you cut out late night eating, you're stacking even more hours where insulin remains low. Over time, this consistent lowering of insulin not only helps you lose weight faster, but it also reduces cravings, balances energy, and improves overall health. Here's something that surprises a lot of people: the timing of when you eat has a far greater impact on fat loss than the number of calories you take in. Most diets are built on this idea of cutting calories, eat less, move more, and you'll lose weight. But the problem is that completely ignores how insulin works. You could eat 100-200 calories a day, and if those calories are spread out from morning to night, insulin is being triggered all day long. And as long as insulin is high, it doesn't matter how little you eat, your body will not burn stored fat. Now let's flip that around. Imagine eating the exact same number of calories, but within a shorter eating window. Instead of grazing throughout the day, you condense your meals into a smaller time frame, maybe 6 or 8 hours. What happens? Insulin only spikes during those meals, and for the rest of the day, it stays low. That gives your body long stretches of time to finally access stored fat. Same calories, but completely different results because insulin is controlled. This is why two people can eat the same food in the same quantity, and one loses weight while the other struggles. The difference is timing. Think of it like charging your phone. If you keep it plugged in constantly, the the battery never cycles properly, and over time, it loses efficiency. But if you allow it to drain and then recharge, it works the way it's supposed to. Your body is similar. If you're constantly eating, you're constantly charging with glucose and insulin, and your metabolism never gets the break it needs to tap into fat. But if you time your meals correctly, you're giving your body the opportunity to switch into fat burning mode for hours at a time. That's where real weight loss happens, not by counting every bite, but by controlling when those bites happen. What really makes this even more powerful is understanding how different foods affect insulin. It's not just about when you eat, but also what you eat. Carbohydrates, especially the refined ones like bread, pasta, cereal, soda, and even so-called healthy fruit juices, spike insulin the fastest. When you load your body with these, insulin shoots up, fat burning shuts down, and cravings come right back. But when you shift toward low-carb foods, things like leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, healthy fats, and moderate protein, insulin stays much more stable. That stability is what allows your body to stay in fat-burning mode for longer stretches of time. This is why someone can eat a plate of pasta and feel hungry just a couple of hours later, while another person can have a meal rich in protein and healthy fats and stay satisfied for most of the day. The difference is insulin. Carbs create a spike, which quickly crashes, and that crash signals hunger again. But when you keep carbs low, insulin rises only slightly, then stays calm, which means your energy is steady, your hunger is reduced, and your body continues to burn fat. Think of it like a thermostat in your house. High-carb foods are constantly turning the heat on full blast, overheating the system, and forcing it to shut down fat burning. Low-carb foods, on the other hand, keep the temperature balanced, steady, and comfortable. That balance is exactly what you want if your goal is weight loss, because it means insulin isn't bouncing up and down all day long. Pair that with intermittent fasting, and you've created the perfect environment for your body to finally use its own fat as fuel. And here's one of the biggest benefits people notice almost right away. When insulin finally comes under control, cravings start to fade. For most people, cravings feel like this unstoppable force. They might do well all morning, then suddenly in the afternoon or late at night, they're reaching for chips, cookies, or something sweet, almost on autopilot. That's not a lack of willpower, that's insulin driving the hunger signals. Every time insulin spikes, it pulls your blood sugar down, and that dip makes your brain scream for quick energy. That's why the cravings feel so intense and hard to resist, but the moment insulin is stabilized, something incredible happens. Those signals calm down. You're no longer chasing food all day. Instead of thinking about snacks every 2 or 3 hours, you start realizing that you can go 5, 6, even 8 hours without feeling desperate for food. Your body is no longer relying on external sugar because it's finally burning internal fat for fuel. And fat is such a steady, reliable energy source that it doesn't create those highs and crashes like carbs do. This is why people often say, "It feels like my appetite just disappeared." It's not that you don't enjoy food anymore, it's that your body isn't stuck in this constant cycle of sugar spikes and crashes. When insulin is balanced, you naturally feel satisfied, your mood is steadier, and your energy is consistent. Cravings aren't something you have to fight anymore, they simply lose their power. That's when weight loss stops being a struggle and starts feeling natural, because your own hormones are working for you instead of against you. Once your cravings calm down and insulin is finally under control, the body begins to shift in the most remarkable way. It changes its preferred source of fuel. Normally, the average person's body is running on sugar, also called glucose. That's why they feel hungry every few hours, why they crash after meals, and why they can't go long without food. They're dependent on glucose because insulin has kept them locked out of their fat reserves. But the moment insulin comes down, your metabolism begins to unlock fat as its primary fuel. And when that happens, everything feels different. Now, let's really break this down so you can understand the power of this shift. Imagine two fuel tanks inside your body. One tank is very small and it's filled with sugar. This is your short-term, quick burst energy source. It's like the gas in the small reserve tank of your car. It doesn't last long, and once it's gone, you're stranded. That's why sugar burners feel exhausted and irritable if they skip a meal, but the other tank, the fat tank, is massive. Even a lean person has tens of thousands of calories stored in body fat. It's like having a huge backup generator that can keep the lights on for weeks. The problem is, insulin has been keeping that generator locked up. You can't access it if insulin is high. When insulin finally lowers, your body gets the green light to tap into that fat tank. Suddenly, instead of running on fumes from the sugar tank, you're running on the endless energy of stored fat. And here's the beauty of it. Fat is a clean, stable fuel. It doesn't cause spikes and crashes. It doesn't make you jittery. It keeps your energy steady for hours. People often describe it as a sense of calm energy, like their body has switched into a gear it was always meant to use but somehow forgot about. That's why those who lower insulin and enter this fat-burning state often say they feel like they've broken free from food addiction. They're no longer controlled by hunger signals every couple of hours. They can go half a day without eating and still feel sharp, focused, and energetic. This is the essence of becoming what we call fat adapted. Your body has learned to efficiently burn fat as its primary fuel, and the difference it makes is enormous, not just for weight loss, but for energy, mental clarity, and even long-term health. Let's compare the two states. When you're burning sugar, you're basically on a roller coaster. You eat, insulin spikes, blood sugar rises, and you feel a burst of energy. Then blood sugar crashes, and you feel tired, moody, and hungry again. That crash drives you to eat more, which starts the cycle all over again. It's exhausting, and it keeps you chained to food. But when you're burning fat, you're on a smooth, steady ride. Your body just keeps pulling from its fat stores, providing a slow and consistent release of energy. There are no highs and lows, just balance. Now, here's something fascinating. Fat as a fuel doesn't just change your body, it changes your brain. The brain can run on glucose, but it actually prefers ketones, which are a byproduct of fat metabolism. When you're in a fat-burning state, your liver begins producing ketones, and these ketones provide a cleaner, more efficient energy source for the brain. That's why people often notice improved focus, sharper memory, and less brain fog when they start burning fat. It's almost like someone has lifted a cloud off their mind. Another benefit is endurance. When you're burning sugar, your energy is limited to that small glucose tank, which means you hit a wall pretty quickly. That's why athletes who are sugar-dependent need constant gels, drinks, and snacks during long events. But a fat-adapted person is tapping into that massive fat tank, which means they can go much longer without refueling. Their endurance skyrockets because they're running on a virtually unlimited source of energy, and the same applies to everyday life. You don't need to be an athlete to benefit. Even in normal activities, work, family, exercise, you'll feel more resilient, less drained, and more capable when your body is powered by fat. Let's also talk about weight loss specifically. When your body is running on sugar, you're basically a sugar burner. Every meal, every snack, every drink with carbs keeps you in that mode. Your body never touches fat because insulin has locked it away. But once you lower insulin, your body is forced to find another energy source. That's when it starts pulling fat from storage. And because fat is a bigger tank, it can provide energy for much longer. The longer insulin stays low, the longer you remain in this fat burning state, and the faster your body begins to shrink fat cells. This is why people who adopt intermittent fasting and low-carb eating often lose weight so quickly. They are no longer just losing water weight or relying on willpower. They're actually burning through stored fat. There's another layer to this. When you burn fat, you're not just tapping into energy, you're reducing inflammation. Sugar and high insulin are strongly linked to inflammation, which is the root of so many health issues. Joint pain, fatigue, skin problems, even deeper issues like fatty liver and cardiovascular disease. When insulin comes down and fat becomes the primary fuel, inflammation begins to decrease. That means not only do you lose weight, but your body begins to heal. People notice less bloating, clearer skin, improved sleep, and better mood. Weight loss becomes just one part of a much bigger transformation. Think of it like this. Your body was designed with fat as its backup generator for survival. For most of human history, food wasn't available all the time. People went hours or even days without eating, and their bodies were perfectly capable of running on stored fat. That's what kept them alive. But in today's world, with constant access to snacks, sugar, and processed foods, insulin stays high all the time, and we've lost touch with that natural fat burning ability. Reconnecting with it isn't something extreme, it's simply returning to the way the body is supposed to function. And here's the best part. Once your body has adapted to burning fat, it doesn't want to go back. The cravings for sugar diminish, the constant hunger fades, and the obsession with food disappears. You feel free. You're not thinking about your next snack or fighting urges all day. You can finally focus on your life, your work, your family, because food is no longer controlling you. This is one of the most liberating feelings you can experience. And it's all because you lowered insulin enough for your body to switch fuel sources. Now, some people worry, won't I feel weak if I stop relying on sugar? And the answer is, at first, maybe a little. There can be an adjustment period because your body is so used to burning sugar that it takes time to build the enzymes and pathways for efficient fat burning. This is what people sometimes call the keto flu, a short period where energy feels low as the body transitions. But once you get through that adjustment, the benefits are enormous. Suddenly, you wake up with steady energy, you can go hours without thinking about food, and the scale finally begins to move in the right direction. To put this in perspective, imagine you've been running a business but only using the petty cash drawer, ignoring the massive bank account sitting untouched. That's what happens when you rely on sugar instead of fat. You're constantly running out of cash, constantly stressed, constantly scrambling to refill the drawer. But once you access the bank account, the fat stores, you're secure, steady, and no longer worried about running out. That's the difference insulin makes. High insulin keeps you stuck in petty cash mode. Low insulin unlocks the bank. This is also why people who switch to fat burning often report that they feel younger, lighter, and more alive. Their bodies are no longer weighed down by constant spikes and crashes, and their hormones are finally balanced. They're not just losing weight, they're regaining control over their metabolism, and that control is priceless. So, when you hear that 99% of people lose weight faster with this insulin trick, this is what it really means. It's not a gimmick. It's the simple biological truth that fat burning only happens when insulin is low. By controlling insulin through meal timing, low-carb eating, and intermittent fasting, you unlock the ability to run on fat, the fuel your body was designed to use. And once you're there, weight loss accelerates, energy stabilizes, cravings vanish, and your whole body begins to transform from the inside out. And this is exactly why almost everyone, literally 99% of people, see faster results when they start focusing on insulin instead of chasing calories, gimmick diets, or endless hours of cardio. Because here's the truth, most weight loss methods fail since they're targeting the wrong problem. They're built on the idea that if you eat less and move more, the body will just let go of fat. But the body isn't a simple math equation, it's a hormonal system, and insulin is the master hormone that determines whether fat burning is even possible. If insulin is elevated, fat loss is blocked, period. That's why so many people who count every calorie and sweat for hours in the gym are still frustrated when nothing changes on the scale. Now compare that to someone who learns how to bring insulin down. They might not even change the total calories they're eating. They might not increase exercise at all. But just by lowering the frequency of meals, cutting the refined carbs, and creating longer gaps where insulin stays low, their body flips into fat burning mode. And once fat burning is turned on, results happen faster. Not because they're trying harder, but because their body is finally working the way it was designed to work. Think of it like trying to row a boat upstream with all your strength versus simply turning the boat around and letting the current carry you. That's the difference between fighting your body with calorie restriction and working with your body by lowering insulin. When insulin is low, you're going with the current and progress feels easier, smoother, and faster. This is also why people often feel shocked when they see results with this approach. They'll say things like, "I can't believe I've lost more weight in a few weeks than I did in months of dieting." Or, "I thought I needed more discipline, but now it feels effortless." That's not an exaggeration. It's what happens when you fix the root issue instead of addressing the symptoms. And it's not just about faster results on the scale. When insulin comes down, the weight you lose is actual fat. With calorie restriction and overexercising, a lot of the initial weight loss is just water and muscle, which is why it comes back so easily. But lowering insulin forces the body to use fat as fuel, which means you're shrinking fat cells, not just dehydrating yourself or losing lean tissue. That's a huge difference because fat loss is sustainable, and it changes your metabolism long term. The 99% success rate doesn't come from willpower, it comes from biology. Almost everyone responds to insulin in the same way. Lower insulin and fat burning turns on. Keep insulin high and fat burning shuts off. It's that simple. Sure, some people may need more time and everyone's starting point is different, but the direction is always the same. The body cannot resist once insulin is lowered. It has no choice but to burn fat, and here's something even more important. When people see results faster, they stay motivated. Most diets drag on so slowly that people give up before they ever see real progress. But with insulin control, changes happen quickly. Weight comes off, cravings vanish, energy rises, and that momentum pushes people forward. That's why this approach doesn't just work temporarily, it becomes a lifestyle. Once you experience how powerful it feels to have your body burning fat instead of storing it, you don't want to go back. So when we say that 99% of people lose weight faster with this insulin trick, it's not hype. It's the reality of how the body works. Fat burning is not about chance or luck. It's about creating the right hormonal conditions, and once insulin is lowered, the results are not only faster, they're inevitable. And here's what makes this approach so different from every diet you've ever tried. It's not about depriving yourself, starving yourself, or forcing willpower day after day. It's about strategy. When you focus on insulin, you're not fighting against your body, you're aligning with it. And that's a huge shift, because weight loss stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. Think about most traditional diets. They tell you to eat less, count every calorie, ignore your hunger, and push through cravings. That's why people fail. They're constantly battling their own biology. The body is designed to resist starvation, so as soon as you cut calories too low, hunger hormones rise, metabolism slows, and cravings intensify. You're in a constant war with yourself. No one can win that battle for long. That's why most people lose a little weight at first, then plateau, then gain it all back. But with the insulin strategy, it's completely different. Instead of eating less food, you simply change the timing and type of food. You eat in a way that keeps insulin low, and the result is that your hunger naturally decreases. You don't have to force it. Your appetite shrinks on its own. You feel satisfied with fewer meals, and you stop thinking about food all day. That's not deprivation, that's balance. And it's sustainable because you're not working against your body, you're working with it. This is why so many people describe it as effortless once they get started. They say things like, "I can't believe how easy this is," or "I don't even feel like I'm dieting anymore." That's because it's not a diet. It's a way of eating that corrects the real problem, which is insulin. When cravings disappear and energy becomes steady, you don't need discipline to stay on track. The body itself is guiding you toward fat burning instead of fat storage. And here's the most important part, sustainability. Anyone can push through a strict diet for a week or two, but the real question is, can you live this way long term? With calorie restriction, the answer is almost always no. With insulin control, the answer is yes, because it doesn't feel like restriction. You still enjoy food, you still feel satisfied, but you're doing it in a way that keeps your hormones working in your favor. That's why people can turn this into a lifestyle instead of a short-term fix. So it's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter. Not about punishing yourself, but about making one simple shift that changes everything. When you stop focusing on willpower and start focusing on insulin, weight loss becomes natural, sustainable, and for the first time, achievable without the constant struggle. So, when you step back and look at the bigger picture, it all comes down to one simple truth. The secret to losing weight faster is not starving yourself, it's not punishing yourself in the gym, and it's not about counting every calorie. It's about controlling insulin. The moment you understand that insulin is the gatekeeper of fat burning, everything finally makes sense. When you bring it down through intermittent fasting, low-carb eating, and smart meal timing, your body unlocks fat as fuel, cravings fade, energy stabilizes, and weight loss becomes not just possible, but almost automatic. This isn't about willpower, it's about working with the way your body was designed to function. And when you apply this insulin trick, you'll join the countless people who discovered that fat burning doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be simple, natural, and sustainable.